breaking news tonight as the British government faces a catastrophic collapse of authority following a televised disaster that has left Prime Minister Keir Starmer fighting for his political life. In a moment that is already being described as the most damaging broadcast incident in modern political history, the Prime Minister appeared to completely freeze live on air when confronted by Nigel Farage. The silence that followed was not just awkward, it was the sound of a government losing control in real time. Within seconds of the exchange, social media platforms lit up with clips of Starmer's visible panic, drawing millions of views in under an hour and igniting a firestorm of speculation about his ability to continue as leader. Westminster is tonight in a state of absolute fever, with senior Labour MPs reportedly holding emergency meetings and openly discussing whether their leader can survive the week. This was not merely a stumbled answer or a gaffe, it was a total disintegration of command before the eyes of the nation. The footage shows a prime minister who looks cornered, exhausted, and fundamentally unable to answer the single most important question facing his administration. As the clip circulates globally, the narrative has shifted instantly from policy debate to leadership crisis, with political analysts warning that the damage appears terminal. The spectacle of a British prime minister standing mute while his opponent dismantles his credibility is an image that will define this era of political failure.
The confrontation that triggered this meltdown occurred yesterday evening during a high-stakes People's Forum broadcast, an event designed to help Starmer reconnect with disillusioned voters in the Midlands. The Prime Minister's team had spent days preparing for soft questions about the NHS and economic growth, convinced they could manage the narrative with rehearsed soundbites. But they had not prepared for Nigel Farage. Entering the arena with the focused intensity of a prosecutor, Farage did not waste time with pleasantries or political etiquette. He bypassed the moderator entirely and launched a direct, blistering attack on what he termed the Great Concealment at the heart of the government's immigration strategy. At 8:15 p.m., with peak viewing numbers holding steady, Farage produced a physical document, a leaked internal memo stamped official sensitive, that he claimed proved the government was secretly planning a mass amnesty for illegal migrants under the guise of processing efficiency. He held the paper aloft, rattling it for the cameras.
The fallout within Westminster was immediate, savage, and explosive. Before the broadcast had even finished, Labour's internal WhatsApp groups were descending into chaos. Leaked messages reveal a party in varying states of panic and fury, with frontbenchers accusing the leadership team of walking him into a trap, and backbenchers demanding to know why they were not informed about the amnesty document. One senior MP reportedly messaged a colleague saying, "It's over. He looked like a rabbit in headlights. We cannot defend this." The sense of betrayal inside the parliamentary party is palpable and dangerous. MPs who have spent months defending the government on the doorsteps feel they have been hung out to dry, forced to carry the can for a policy they were told didn't exist. By midnight, Downing Street was in full crisis mode, with aides shouting at producers, canceling morning media rounds, and frantically trying to issue a denial that nobody believed. But the damage was already done. The image of Starmer freezing, powerless, fearful, and exposed had shattered the illusion of competence that was the only thing holding his fragile coalition together. Sources inside Number 10 describe the atmosphere as funereal, with staff wandering the corridors in shock, aware that the ground had shifted beneath them. The media, smelling blood, has turned ferociously against the government. Headlines that were once supportive or neutral are now savage, with even left-leaning broadsheets questioning whether Starmer has the mettle to lead the country through a crisis. The narrative is no longer about whether Labour can win the next election. It is about whether Starmer can last until Christmas. Every hour brings a new leak, a new anonymous quote, a new knife in the back from his own side. But the crisis extends far beyond the political bubble of Westminster and into the homes of millions of angry citizens. The revelation of the secret amnesty document has acted as an accelerant for public rage that has been building for months. Across the country, ordinary citizens are reacting with a mixture of disbelief and fury. In the red wall seats that Labour fought so hard to win back, the mood is venomous. Voters view the freeze not just as a moment of incompetence, but as proof of guilt. To them, Starmer's inability to answer was an admission that he values the welfare of foreign nationals over the security and stability of his own citizens. Talk radio lines have been jammed since dawn, with callers expressing a profound sense of betrayal. One caller, a lifelong Labour voter from Bolton, broke down in tears live on air, saying, "I voted for him because he promised to stop the boats. Now I find out he's giving them amnesty while I can't get a GP appointment? It's treason." This sentiment is spreading like wildfire. The freeze has become a symbol of a government that is not just out of touch, but actively working against the interests of the people it is supposed to serve. The contrast between the Prime Minister's paralysis and the daily struggles of British families, rising bills, crumbling services, and a sense of national decline is proving lethal. While Starmer stands frozen in a TV studio, unable to defend his record, pensioners are freezing in their homes, unable to afford heating. While he stammers about protocols, veterans are sleeping on the streets. The moral weight of this failure is crushing the government's legitimacy. The betrayal is visceral, personal, and unforgivable.
Then came the intervention that transformed this political crisis into a constitutional earthquake. Just hours after the broadcast, Buckingham Palace released details of an unscheduled meeting between King Charles and his Privy Council. While the palace remains officially neutral, royal sources leaked a specific comment made by the king regarding the paramount importance of integrity and transparency in high office. The timing was unmistakable. For the monarch to speak about transparency on the very day the prime minister was caught hiding a secret amnesty is a rebuke of devastating power. Constitutional experts are calling it a velvet guillotine, a signal that the crown is deeply concerned about the direction of the government. This royal signal has emboldened the establishment to turn on Starmer. City of London investors, already jittery, have taken the king's subtle warning as a sign of impending instability. The pound took a sharp dive against the dollar as markets opened this morning, wiping billions off the value of UK companies. Economic analysts warn that international confidence in the British government is evaporating, with foreign investors unwilling to commit capital to a country led by a prime minister who appears to have lost control. The combination of royal disapproval, market turbulence, and public fury has created a perfect storm that threatens to sweep the administration away entirely. When the currency falls and the king speaks, the writing is on the wall.
As night falls over London, the situation is deteriorating by the hour. Reform UK is capitalizing on the chaos with ruthless efficiency. Nigel Farage has announced a nationwide truth tour, rallying thousands of supporters who see him as the only man willing to speak the truth to power. Polls conducted in the aftermath of the broadcast show a catastrophic slide for Labour, with Reform surging into second place in dozens of key constituencies. The political map of Britain is being redrawn in real time. Inside the bunker of Downing Street, Starmer is reportedly isolated, trusting only a tiny circle of loyalists, while his cabinet plots in the shadows. Rumors of a leadership challenge are no longer whispers. They are being shouted from the rooftops. Senior ministers are positioning themselves, leaking damaging stories to the press to distance themselves from a leader they now regard as a dead man walking. The question is no longer if Starmer will go, but when. Will he be forced out by a delegation of gray-suited men telling him his time is up? Will he suffer the humiliation of a no-confidence vote? Or will he cling on, dragging his party and the country down with him? The freeze was the moment the mask slipped, revealing the vacuum of authority behind it. And now, as the sharks circle and the public roars, Britain waits to see how the final act of this tragedy will play out. Stay with us, because what happens in the next 24 hours will decide the fate of the nation.
The sheer scale of the deception revealed by Farage has sent shockwaves through the very institutions that are supposed to protect the British public. What began as a question about amnesty has unraveled a much larger web of deceit that critics say borders on malfeasance in public office. Leaked appendices to the document Farage displayed suggest that this processing efficiency scheme included provisions to prioritize housing for these new amnesty recipients over local council waiting lists, a detail that is radioactive in communities already suffering from a housing crisis. When this detail broke an hour ago, the public mood shifted from anger to open revolt. In Stoke-on-Trent, a crowd of furious residents has gathered outside the local Labour MP's office, demanding resignation. They are holding placards that read, "British homes for British people," and "Starmer the betrayer." This is not an isolated incident. Reports are coming in of similar spontaneous protests in Sunderland, Hartlepool, and Hull. The Labour Party's traditional heartlands are not just turning away, they are fighting back. The sense of violation is profound. People feel that their own government has plotted against them in secret, using the cover of bureaucracy to dismantle the social contract. Starmer's silence in the studio is being interpreted not as confusion, but as the guilt of a man caught red-handed in a robbery of the nation's future.
In the corridors of Westminster, the panic is turning into a circular firing squad. Junior ministers, terrified of losing their seats in the coming annihilation, are resigning in protest. We have received confirmation that 2 parliamentary private secretaries have already handed in letters of resignation, citing an inability to defend the indefensible. These are the canaries in the coal mine. When the payroll vote starts to fracture, the government collapses. Cabinet meetings have reportedly descended into shouting matches, with Deputy Prime Minister Angela Rayner allegedly telling Starmer to his face that he has lost the dressing room. The unity that Labour prided itself on has evaporated, replaced by a vicious battle for survival. Factions are emerging, briefing against each other with a ferocity that suggests the end is near. Some are pushing for an immediate leadership contest to salvage the party's reputation, while others are terrified that a contest now would only expose the depth of the rot. The paralysis at the top of the party is mirroring the paralysis of the Prime Minister in that studio. No one is leading. No one is taking charge. The ship of state is drifting towards the rocks, and the captain is locked in his cabin, refusing to answer the door.
Meanwhile, Nigel Farage is dominating the airwaves, dictating the terms of the national debate. Every news channel, every radio station, every newspaper is running with his narrative. He has effectively become the leader of the opposition in all but name. His truth tour is drawing crowds that dwarf anything the mainstream parties can muster. In a speech delivered just moments ago in Birmingham, Farage declared, "The silence of Keir Starmer was the scream of a broken system. They thought they could hide the truth from you. They thought you wouldn't notice. But we noticed, and we are coming for them." The applause was deafening. Farage is channeling a deep, anti-establishment fury that has been dormant but never extinguished. He is framing this crisis not as a policy dispute, but as a moral crusade against a lying elite. By positioning himself as the one man who forced the truth into the light, he is winning over voters who have never considered voting for him before. The polls are showing a seismic shift, with Reform UK picking up support from disillusioned Labour voters and furious Conservatives alike. The centre of British politics is collapsing, leaving a vacuum that Farage is all too happy to fill. The international implications of this meltdown are equally severe. Diplomatic cables leaked to the press suggest that European leaders are watching the chaos in London with alarm. They see a British Prime Minister who is mortally wounded, unable to command the respect of his own people or his own party. This perceived weakness is dangerous. It invites pressure from foreign powers who smell blood in the water. Negotiations on trade, defense, and security are stalling because no one knows if Starmer will still be in charge next month. Britain looks like an unreliable partner, a nation consumed by internal strife and led by a lame duck. The French media is openly mocking Starmer, calling him l'homme de glace, the Iceman, and suggesting that his government is effectively over. This loss of international standing hurts Britain's interests at a critical time, further fueling the sense that the country is in freefall. The freeze was a moment of national humiliation broadcast to the world, and the world is taking note. As the clock ticks towards Prime Minister's questions on Wednesday, the tension is becoming unbearable. Starmer must appear in the House of Commons. He must face the benches of jeering opponents and the stony silence of his own MPs. If he cannot explain the secret amnesty document, if he freezes again, his premiership will end on the floor of the House. The whips are frantically trying to ensure that Labour MPs actually show up to support him, but reports suggest that many are planning to stay away, refusing to be used as human shields for a leader they no longer believe in. The 1922 committee of the Conservative Party is watching with glee, but even they are nervous about the sheer scale of the public anger, which threatens to sweep away the entire political class, not just Labour.
This is a moment of extreme danger for the establishment. If they cannot provide answers, if they cannot restore trust, the public may look for radical alternatives. The freeze was the spark, but the explosion is still coming.
The final tragedy of this situation is the human cost. While politicians scheme and panic, the real issues facing the country are being ignored. The amnesty scandal has sucked all the oxygen out of the room. Critical decisions on energy, health, and education are being paralyzed because the government is in survival mode. The system failure theme is now a reality for millions. The freeze in the TV studio is a metaphor for a frozen nation, stuck, unable to move forward, trapped by the incompetence of its leaders. As viewers watch the clip of Starmer over and over again, they are not just seeing a man fail, they are seeing a system fail. They are seeing the mask of authority slip to reveal nothing but fear and deceit. And they are angry. The anger is cold, hard, and resolute. It is the anger of a people who have been taken for a ride and have finally decided to get off. The next few days will determine the future of the United Kingdom. Will Starmer resign? Will the government fall? Or will we see a reconfiguration of British politics that we can barely imagine? One thing is certain. The country that existed before that broadcast is gone. We are in new, dangerous territory now, and there is no